Hello and welcome, everyone. We are the Being Healthy live stream. And we're so glad that you made it with us today because we have not just our co hosts, but we also have a very extra special guest for you today. And that's Dr. Sailesh Rao. And we will bring him on shortly. So, what we're going to do, we're going to first of all have each of the co hosts introduce themselves to Dr. Rao, and then we're going to bring him on, and we're going to just leave it to him to speak about the topic for today. What is the topic for today? Well, first, I want you to have a look at this clip.
Did you know there's a whole forest inside a seed? One tiny thing can hold the power to reshape the world. And the craziest part, so can you. Because you were made of ancient ocean. The salt in your blood, it's almost identical to seawater. You're not on Earth, you're of it. And every time you eat, you're eating sunlight. That's all food is. A transfer of solar energy through a plant, through an animal, into you. You're a walking, breathing flame. And guess what lights it? Your gut. The so-called second brain. It's got more neurons than a dog's brain. It feels before you think. And when you feed it right, your whole world shifts. But you've only got 4,000 weeks. That's it. If you live to 76, that's all you get. So how are you going to spend them? Because the Earth is humming, literally. A frequency called the Schumann resonance, the same frequency as a calm, focused brain. You are designed to be in tune. And you know what made us human? Fire. We're the only species that cooks. We harnessed flame and everything changed. We fed our brains, we fed our dreams. Reality isn't fixed. It depends who's looking. And in the forest, trees are talking. They send food, warnings, love through underground roots. Nature is alive. It's intelligent. And it's waiting for us to remember. You're not just a consumer. You're a force of life. You carry sunlight, story, and soil in your body. It's time to act like it.
Yes, indeed. So, what he's speaking about is the element of fire. Today, we're going to be looking for the next 5 weeks at all the elements. You are made up of all of them. Of course, when you have illness or disease, it means you're depleted in 1, 2, 3, 4, or maybe even all of them to some degree. Today, we're going to be focusing on the element of air. Why? Because that's the most critical. Without air, we cannot live. So, with that, I'm going to ask first our co-host to introduce themselves to Dr. Rao and just make a quick comment about what you just saw. And then we're going to bring in Dr. Rao. I'm going to turn this over to him. So, Pete, please unmute yourself and just introduce yourself to Dr. Rao and just comment on what you just saw, please.
Yeah, I've been on a journey at a bit of a wake-up call 17 years ago. So that sped up my searching for, you could say, to stay actually alive and more in longevity. So 17 years uncooked food in terms of fire. There's many interpretations of the fire. So that's been my journey, taking a raw food cafe and sauna space to small festivals, subtly being the example and sharing certain knowledge along the way to who may require and ask. In terms of what I just saw, wow, very powerful, very powerful. Interesting where it may go, where it went after that. So yeah, the fire. There's many an analogy of fire. So there's the inner fire, and not to get too lost on the manifestation of the physical fire.
Thank you, Pete. And Lisa, you're up next.
Thank you, Dorit. Wow, what you just shared was life in essence, right? That we are part of a system. And I think that as we look at ourselves and we look at each other, our disconnection from nature is our greatest cause of suffering. So thank you for that reminder. how each one of the elements, air, fire, all of them have such meaning. And sometimes we just kind of look for the quick fix, and we don't realize how systemic it really is, and what we really need to do as a whole world to transform. So thank you.
Absolutely agreed, Sabina. Remember to unmute first, please, Sabina.
Okay, hello, my name is Sabina, originally from Germany, but now in upstate New York, living in the mountains and forest. And yes, powerful clip. And the elements are actually the most powerful nutrients, because we think of nutrition, we think of food, that's where most people think, but actually air, water, fire, earth are actually they're nutrients that we actually need and that we thrive off, and they're actually more powerful than food. Just imagine, you can live on food for quite a while, but how long can you live on without air? Not very long. How long can you live without water? Yes, quite a while, but you can always, these are more powerful than actually the food. So we put so much emphasis on food, and we forget that the most powerful nutrients are actually free and they're available to all of us. And it's just an invitation to explore.
Wonderful, Sabina. Thank you. And all of these elements must be present in the food that we eat in that form, in their virgin form. So, Herb, that brings us to you.
Hi. I want to say hi, Dr. Sailesh Rao-A. It's a pleasure to be acquainted with you and share this space. And I recognize all the values that you bring to this world, being of service. So acknowledging that, thank you very much. And my name's Herb. I'm living in the United Kingdom, and I had a shift in consciousness 10 years ago, making a connection with the animals. And yeah, that came out of compassion, and it developed into expanding my life, my health. I'm a fruitarian now for 7 years, and that's just opened up so many more pathways and life. It's truly beautiful, and that's my my message I like to share with others is peace, love, joy, celebration, and consciousness. And to touch on what the gentleman spoke about in the videos, a couple of things I like to mention is he mentioned about fire, and fire can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And as a raw food, I'm gonna have to say, like, fire can be used in the wrong way, so to speak, by cooking our food, denaturing our food. So there's something I disagree with that gentleman on there. A healthy disagreement. And yeah, the seeds, we're all seeds. Every one of us is a seed. I see it in myself, being a little seed and sprouting into becoming vegan, and it branching out much higher. And we all have seeds within ourselves. Yeah, we're all little fruit, little fruits and fruit, and dot about over the world and scatter lots of joy and peace.
Thank you so very much, Herb. So I'm going to explain why I use that clip with him talking about actually fire, because we need fire. We need the element of fire in our food, which is why the earth, the heavens, the moon, the stars, the sunlight already cooks our food. That's why I never say raw food. I say living foods, because the food has been pre-cooked by the element of fire. We need the element of fire for our food, and that is why I do that. So with that, let's bring in the master himself, Dr. Sailesh Rao. Come on in, please.
Well, thank you so much, Dorit. Thank you for this amazing platform that you've created. And I come to it from a very systems perspective. I'm a systems engineer by profession, and I try to weave stories around what has happened so that we know what we have to do going forward. And I see separation as a delusion. We are never separated. We have never been separated. We've always been a part of nature. and we have been doing nature's bidding unknowingly or knowingly. And so we are the one species that migrated out of Africa and went to every part of the world, around 50,000 years ago. And then we used fire to basically heat up the planet and maintain the temperature for the last 10,000 years. So we have done that. And now we are being woken up to realize that we no longer have to eat animals, and we no longer have to be cruel to anyone. We have to become caretakers of this beautiful planet. And to do that, we have to relinquish, we have to give up land, give land back to nature, and restore the forests that we cut, because we have cut half the trees on the planet over the last 10,000 years. And it doesn't take much to restore those trees, because in Ethiopia, in one single day, the 23 million people of Ethiopia planted 714 million trees. If the whole world emulated Ethiopia, we could plant 1 trillion trees in 4 days. So it doesn't take much for us to relinquish and then restore the planet if we want to really do it. And that's what we are being called to do. This is why we now have access to fruits everywhere. So you can be fruitarian in the UK, right, Herb? Even during winter. And because there is another fire that's putting the fruits on a ship and bringing it over to you, even if you cannot grow it there. So we have all the tools that we need, all the technology that we need to truly become a caretaker species of this planet. And one of the most important things we need to do is we need to clean up the air of this planet. One of the first things I learned when I started working on the environment is that through our industrial processes, we are pouring something like 220 billion tons of chemicals into the environment. Okay, it goes in the water, it goes in the air. Any effluent from an industrial factory goes up in the air, and then it comes down in the rain. But nature has this beautiful process for filtering it, and it's through trees, because trees take the water that is now contaminated with these chemicals, and they transpire it through their leaves, and as they transpire it through the leaves, they're filtering the water. So by the time it comes out of the leaves, it's pure water. So all the chemicals are then stored in the trunks and the branches of the trees. Okay, this is how trees naturally filter the water for us and filter the air. Okay? And so the way I found this out was the women in India, in the villages of India, they don't live as long as the men. So their life expectancy is around 8 years less than the men, which is unusual, right? I mean, usually women live longer than men. And it's the other way around in the villages of India. And so there was a professor who was studying why this is the case. And he basically attributed it to the fact that the women do the cooking. And to cook, they were cutting the branches of trees and using that as firewood. And so every time they cooked, it was as if they were smoking one pack of cigarettes, because that's how much chemical pollution was coming into their body. So they get COPD earlier, and they die from lung infections. This is why they live less than the men on average. So anyway, he found this out, and he traced it to the fact that the trees around the world are now filled with this chemical pollution. So, and it's one of the major environmental issues that we are facing, the chemical pollution, because our industrial processes are continuously pouring another 220 billion tons every year. 220 billion tons, that's like 25 tons per person per year. That's like 25 elephants worth of chemicals we're pouring into the environment per person per year. What do we need so much for? That you need to. If you live in a house like this behind me, yes, you will need it. But it's a virtual house that StreamYard gave me. That's not the house I live in. But we need to now simplify. So it turns out that all civilization, they go through a lot of complexification. And complexity is created in order to solve problems. And eventually, the so-called collapse of a civilization is a major simplification that happens. And to me, the vegan movement is about simplification. It is about saying, I do not need to take the food, give it to an animal, and then eat the animal. I can eat the food directly, right? Or we don't have to use animals for any purpose whatsoever, because now we have a responsibility to restore the planet. So to me, air is a very important aspect of this, of our life and of the planet, because it's that thin layer of the biosphere. It's very, very thin. It's like a, tiny, like a varnish on a soccer ball. It's that thin. And it's that layer that is supporting life on the planet, mainly. Okay, that's where life lives. And it's through air, through the oxygen in the air, the oxygen that the trees put out, and then we breathe in and we give out carbon dioxide. All animals do that. And that carbon dioxide then becomes food for the plants. So it's a cycle that we are in. And it's about maintaining those cycles within limits. And that's what we have to start doing as a species. We have to now train our children to become caretaker species of the planet. So I call this transformation from Homo sapiens to Homo ahimsa, which is from a so-called wise hominid, we acquire humility and become the kind hominid. So that's the transformation that we are in. And you're all part of it. I say anyone who has gone vegan is forming the foundation of this new species that we have become. And as the vegan movement grows, we are going to create systems around non-violence, as opposed to systems around violence that we are in. So that is the big picture. And I'm happy to have a discussion with this, around this with you, with all of you.
And so, Dr. Rao, can you also explain to everyone exactly what is this ancient science of Ayurveda and what connection does it have to the Vedas as well?
Yeah, Ayurveda is about maintaining our health. So it's how do you maintain your own health? And the Vedas are a compendium of the truth as we know it. Okay, so it is philosophy. It touches everything. And Ayurveda is about health. And to me, Ayurveda is more about preventive health, preventive medicine, so you don't get sick. But if you get sick, they try to balance you back into health. And so there's a whole science behind it, and it's now increasingly being recognized as a valid science. And it's very ancient, Yeah.
So would you touch on the 5 elements, please, and why are these so important? Why is that also all of the ancient tribes speak of and honor the 5 elements?
Correct. Yeah, it's fire, water, air, earth, and so space, a vacuum, space. So those are the 5 elements, or ether they call it. And we are all made up of that. All life is made up of these 5 elements. And you need these 5 elements for life to thrive. You need the 5 elements in proper balance for life to thrive. And it is, to me, a simple way of explaining how health is maintained, not just in human beings, but on the planet as well. Okay, so if you look at all the so-called planetary boundary transgressions that we have identified, it all has to do with these 5 elements being out of balance. The air, we have added too much of this. To water, we have impeded the flow of water on the planet by putting dams everywhere, and we have cut down forests. So we have modified the earth. So all the things that we have done has caused the planet to become out of balance, and it's now up to us to rebalance it. So as we rebalance ourselves, as we heal ourselves, we start eating living foods, as you call it, Dorit. Because remember, when we didn't know how to start a fire, about 500,000 years ago, which is not that long in the Earth's history, we didn't have access to starting a fire whenever we wanted. We were eating fruits. What else smells good? What else is edible directly, right? Fruits, herbs, leaves, plants. This is what we were eating mainly. It's only after we had control of fire that we were able to cook our food. And that's when we were able to migrate out of Africa and go to every part of the world. Because when you go to live in Europe, you had to survive somehow or the other. And that's where eating animals became more prevalent. And now that we have connected again across the whole world and we have become one family again, and now that we have access to fruits everywhere, we have an abundance of food, we can now go back to the way we were and restore the planet. Because we have done our job. The earth will never go back to the ice age ever again as long as we're around. Okay, so it's about, again, bringing balance to the earth, and bringing balance to all the elements of the earth.
And so to bring balance into our lives, we also must replenish all these 5 elements on a regular basis in our daily lives, in our bodies. Because the bodies is the only transport system that we have while we're here. And if we do not replenish all of these 5 elements on a regular basis, and instead we look at calories, and we look at cutting calories and upping calories and looking at what our caloric intake was today, we've missed out on the fact that we're not a bag of calories. Rather, we are made up of the 5 elements. And all food, to be called food, must also be made up of the 5 elements in order to restore our own need for the 5 elements. The only thing on earth, the only thing that has all 5 elements intact when it's not been meddled with by us humans is fruit. Fruit has the most water of any plant life or anything else on earth, except for the oceans and the lakes and the streams, and maybe your backyard pool. But the only way that you can actually live a healthy life is to constantly replenish these elements. And this is why I'm focusing on the elements for the next 5 live streams, because we're going to go through one by one. So when you think of, am I eating enough air today? The first thing that comes to your mind is, what has a lot of oxygen in it? Greens have a lot of chlorophyll with a tremendous amount of air. So as Dr. Rao said, herbs are very important. We also eat a lot of seeds and nuts. And it's very interesting to see how animals eat, because animals do replenish all of the 5 elements. We're the only animal who has forgotten that we're made up of these elements and we need to. I think that most mental disorders and most people are raging. We have a lot of rage going on these days. And most people who are physically sick, depleted, tired, and just don't understand why they don't feel well no matter what they do, it's because they're missing one or more of the elements, or they are not in the right proportion in the body. And that is what's critical and crucial. And that's why when most people transition from what I call an overcooked diet, because an overcooked diet to me is one where we then take the food that has already been cooked by nature, by the sunlight, by the stars, by the moon, and we think it's not cooked enough. We think nature hasn't done its job. The universe doesn't cook it enough. So we're going to put it on a fire, whether it's a barbecue pit or a stove or an oven or whatever, and we're going to cook it some more. And then we take out all the elements or most of them. But when we get it straight from nature like that, it has all the 5 elements intact. So this is why people say, oh, you eat only fruit. It's not. No, it's not that. What you need to say is, oh, so you eat all the 5 elements on a regular basis. How marvelous. Because that is the truth of what it is. So, Dr. Rao, you created some films. Could you tell us some of the reasons why you created certain films, and what exactly in the films you would say would assist, which film would help people to look at the 5 elements as something that is necessary, crucial, and is not divorced from us?
Yeah, we made a number of documentaries, mainly focused on the environment and veganism. So I'm an executive producer of about 12 documentaries, and so starting with the human experiment, which had to do with the chemical pollution of the planet. That was the first one we did in 2013, and then as part of Cowspiracy, and then What the Health, and a Prayer for Compassion, and then there are a number of movies that came out around the same time. They're Trying to Kill Us, and The End of Medicine, Milked, The Land of Ahimsa, and Animals: A Parallel History. So they all have to do with either social justice and how veganism addresses that, or environment, how veganism addresses that, health. So it's looking at all aspects of why this transformation that we are part of is necessary for humanity to undergo, and how that would then restore the planet. Okay. And so
could you also mention the Land of Ahimsa? And
yes,
a lot of people watching do not know what Ahimsa means as well.
Yeah, The Land of Ahimsa is a movie that Dolly Vyasahuja did. And she's the granddaughter, the great-granddaughter of Chaganlal Joshi, who was Mahatma Gandhi's right-hand man, who helped Mahatma Gandhi with implementing the Salt March. So she has that pedigree, and so she then became vegan, and she realized, she needs to try and, tell the story of how she is now standing up for the animals, just like her great-grandfather stood up for the people of India. And Ahimsa is literally A and Himsa. Himsa means extreme cruelty. A is the exact opposite. So Ahimsa means the opposite of extreme cruelty, which is extreme kindness. So it's radical kindness. Let me put it that way. Radical non-violence. Okay, non-harming. And so I call our transformation as going from the Homo sapiens, which is the name that we have given ourselves. We have gave ourselves the name of being the wise species. And we're not exactly being wise at the moment. If we look at the actions, any alien would come down and say, there's something wrong with this species, right? So we are not acting wise. And to me, wisdom always comes with humility. And humility, when someone is humble, it doesn't go around saying, I'm wise. So naming ourselves as wise, to me, is a lack of humility, right from the outset, right? So I'd say that we need to embrace the term that Judy Carman came up with, called Homo ahimsa, which means we are the non-violent, the kind species, the radically kind species. So that all other life begins to see us as the caretakers of the planet, that we are not going to harm them, And they get to know very quickly, by the way. They can tell. There's a story about the Akashinga in Zimbabwe. I think it's Zimbabwe, where they found out that if we have men as caretakers of the forest who are preventing poaching, then the rhinos actually attack the men. So the male guardians or the male forest rangers were injured more by the rhinos than by the poachers themselves. But when they had women as the rangers, not a single woman has been hurt by the rhinos, because the animals know that women have never hurt them. Isn't that amazing? So
it sure is. It sure is. I wanted to also find out from you, when you were showing, I remember when you were touring India with the Land of Ahimsa with that film, you were sending back all these reports, what was going on. Very fascinating. And I thought that was really important to find out, and that I made sure I read each one that you sent back, because India now is undergoing quite a transformation. The more people who are more wealthy, they're getting away from the plant-based diet and going more towards eating meat. So how was the film received across India, and do you think it made the impact that you were looking for?
It's a process. India to me is going through the same process as the West, but in a much more compressed time frame. So India has a lot of vegetarians still, lacto-vegetarians. I think 30% of Indians are still lacto-vegetarian, and quite a few of those are going vegan. It turns out that lacto-vegetarians, when they realize the cruelty in the dairy industry, they try to go vegan. So the vegan movement is growing. Simultaneously, people are becoming more wealthy, and they're being tempted by the industry to eat animals, because that's how they make money off of you. You have to get sick before they make money off of you, right? So they're trying to get people to go sick. That's the system we have. It's a system that's based on normalized violence. It's based on diseases and death and destruction for the planet. So that's, since we are stuck in the system, people go along with the system. And now we have to basically help them come over, and we have to create a new system around nonviolence. And only then, I truly believe that only when the system, the nonviolent system, is visible and people are able to participate in this, that the transformation will happen much, much faster. Because until we build the infrastructure for a vegan world, you're not going to get a vegan world. Okay, that's why what's happening in India is happening that way. But people are waking up faster as well. Just like people are now waking up in the West. A lot of people are going vegan in the West. But India, it's everything is compressed. The time is compressed.
And how would you respond to somebody who asks the eternal question that we all hear all the time, which is, but what you're talking about violence and to stop eating violence, but every time you pick a plant or fruit or you cut it into a vegetable, you're hurting it. How do you respond to that eternal question?
Oh, the plants feel pain. Yeah, well, you have to see the big picture. Even if you cut a plant, okay, if you cut a plant, take a cutting of a plant, and you eat that, the plant grows from the cutting. Okay? Whereas an animal, if you cut a leg off an animal, the animal doesn't grow a new leg. Secondly, a fruit is offered by the plant to you, saying, please take this and spread my seed. So it's a gift from nature. It's not something that you're taking from nature like that. Right? So I say that eating plants is different from eating animals because of these two main reasons. Okay, and you don't have to kill a plant to eat it. You basically take the leaves, or you take cuttings of the plant and eat it, or you take fruits from the plant and eat it. So we can survive, we can thrive actually by doing just that as a species, and that minimizes our footprint, because we need to now transition to a system in which we are routinely giving more than we take. Only then is the planet going to get better, right? Right now, all the planetary indicators are going in the wrong direction. Okay? Everything that we have seen is going in the wrong direction. So David Suzuki is saying, it's like we have gone beyond the point of no return. I don't believe that. I mean, I don't believe that until the world goes vegan and we check. Because this is one situation where we are running an experiment on Earth, and we are in the experiment. Okay, we are in the experiment, and anything that you model is a poor substitute for reality. So we really have to check it in the experiment itself. We have to all go vegan and then verify whether we have gone beyond the point of no return or not. And if it turns out that we've gone beyond the point of no return, then we have to figure out how to address that particular aspect of the problem. So I say until the world goes vegan, I'm not declaring that we have gone beyond the point of no return. So that's the situation that we find ourselves in. I really say that it's like we are in a 7-alarm fire on the planet. The planet is telling us change as quickly as possible. Okay? And a lot of people are not hearing it or pretending not to hear it. And that's the problem we are facing among the leaders of the world. And so it's up to the people to heed the warnings from nature and transform ourselves. And as more and more of us transform, then our leaders will come along. Because they are not leaders, they are really followers. None of the leaders, political leaders or social leaders, are truly leaders at the moment. I don't see a Gandhi or a Churchill, who can lead us.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I'm going to turn this over to our co-host now to interact with you, whether to ask questions or to simply come on and respond.
Sure.
Starting with Pete. Pete? Hello,
Yeah.
Pete.
Yes. Oh, wow. I could listen to you. Well, I'm going to listen more to you. That's amazing. And like I said at the beginning, it's an honor to have you here, and an amazing pioneering work, and how you articulate is beautiful. It's really interesting I'm going to say, coming from a more layman perspective in my early years of not knowing too much. Damn, just lost it, baby.
We lost the photograph. So we lost his image, but you can keep speaking though, Pete.
Okay. So so it's been really interesting just following an instinct. And then I realized as I got more well rehearsed and read different things, it's innate in all of us. If we can clear out a lot of the junk and the programs and follow more your own heart, that's a big one, that one. But what is intuition? But really what I've realized is especially eating less karmic riddled foods, fuel, in terms of we are all energy beings. So I've worked with my dreams a lot, and from consuming or engaging in any act like that, it has a massive impact on our field, our spirit, our body. Interesting what you mentioned about the women and the men, rhino. Okay, keepers. There was something I remember in India, when I was in India, the fishermen would never really go in the sea. They didn't swim. And the correlation was, well, because they're eating the sharks and fish all the time. And there was implying that a lot of them have been actually bitten by them, or harmed by them. So that was really interesting. And so there's you could say a cause and effect, karma, but natural law, for me, keep going back to energy, because there's so many man-made concepts that are just full of trickery. So watch nature, if we watch nature and the animals and things like that, as Herb would say, as I do sort of say, no animal cooks any food. You don't see them rushing around a fire. Maybe occasionally scavenging, actually, the occasional time, and they're probably a bit more domesticated. But so it's beautiful hearing what you're doing. So what I realized, for me, I had to clear so many programs, just seeing again in my dream state and my habitual, I'm going to call them addictions, that have been spoon fed. So there's a lot of psychology that goes on with it, and you get to realize what we are up against. It's like, well, who's controlling this, or who is feeding this nonsense, whether in the media, not whether in the media, in the pop music world. And then I recognize we become prison guards ourselves. They've got us to kind of judge, browbeat each other down, and peer pressure from school, and even the kids coming back programmed to kind of get the parents in a system that actually, once again, follow the dollar. It's all about keeping us ill and depowering ourselves. So it's beautiful. You said so much there. There's so much. So it's, for me, my journey is being an example of it, not even eating any animal for like 17, 18 years. I did fish for about the 10 years previous before that. So, and it just, one step after another, you get to really see, witness, but that can be just very mind, but embody. It's like the spirit can come in more, and then you have a much stronger sense of self, strong sense of, as we are all one tree, plants, and it's just obscene some of the things we do, and however, then you got to deal with that information. So it's been for me a beautiful journey. I'm an example of being happy, getting through the programs, and at my age now, feeling so much inner joy, and I'm hence why, because let's just say, if I look at it, I'm 80-90% in terms of fruits with raw meals, salads and greens. So it's what I'm putting into my body. So it's vibration without even knowing, not following any books, and it just makes sense. It's just an innate that we all had once in us. So it's getting back to that. However, shock trauma to the system, as I've seen many cultures, it's been a system that's been used as we know, many systems people, controllers, rulers, dictators take on a religion, etc., and use a certain format to kind of what works to keep a spirit down in body. So rock on, spirit.
Thank you for that, Pete. I'm going to hand it over to Lisa now.
Thank you, Pete. That was beautiful what you shared. My takeaway, because I always want to look for sometimes in the messaging, right? In the, the call to create a new transformation, the call to stop using the earth as an inexhaustible supply and move into where we give more. I love that, what you said, give more rather than take. That energetic balance, which not only applies to the earth, but to ourselves. It's all connected. I love the trees that you talked about in Nigeria, how in, I think you said 3 days, they just changed the trajectory of trees. And to connect back to what Dorit was talking about, the trees are our lungs. the air we breathe, right? And the element of air governs not only the earth itself, but our ability to speak, our nervous system, right? And so many different pathways within. And my curiosity is what can we do to start? You talked about a vegan diet. You talked about making changes. And I had the privilege of attending your talk where you talked about Planet B, which I love. How do we start now with this information? Because I would rather connect with hope, which is, I know, your message, rather than despair. But sometimes, I have to be honest, it can be overwhelming. So what can you share with us that can give us those concrete steps to help change the world that we live in, to not change it, but to call it into a new paradigm?
Yeah. No, it's a very good question, Lisa. And it's really about transforming ourselves. When you transform yourself, the world changes around you. The world transforms around you. And so I say, if you look at the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, they had identified these 8 risky behaviors that are responsible for 90% of the healthcare costs in the world. As you know, animals don't have hospitals and healthcare systems and so on. They're living happily without any of this. But it's our risky behavior that cause most of these chronic diseases. And so the 8 risky behaviors are starting with poor diet. That's the number 1 risk. Second is lack of exercise. Third is smoking. Fourth is lack of health screening. Fifth is lack of sleep. Sixth is stress, mental stress. Then 7th is poor standard of care. So you go to a hospital and they treat you for the wrong thing and they kill you. That's the poor standard of care. And 8th is excessive alcohol or drug consumption. So these are the 8 risky behaviors that are responsible for 90% of the healthcare costs in the world today.
And have we noticed that all of them have to do with the lack of air, with the element of air?
Yeah. So I say, do the exact opposite of the 8 risky behaviors. You will heal yourself. So begin from poor diet to healthy diet, healthy vegan diet, whole food plant-based diet. Second, from lack of exercise to regular exercise routines, yoga. From smoking to pranayama, which is conscious breathing. This is something that I do every day. Basically do conscious breathing as slow as you possibly inhale, and then as slow as possible you exhale. And you can alternate nostrils when you do that. And when you do that, you sort of load up your body with oxygen, and you'll feel so much more energy than you would, because most of the time we breathe pretty shallow. So that's the third one. Then fourth, from lack of health screening to regular health routines. So do this every day. Do your yoga every day. Eat right every day. And do pranayama every day. So I do it every morning when I wake up. It's my routine. I do this. So that's the regular health routines. And then from stress management, you have to have meditation and awareness from stress. And then from lack of sleep to adequate sleep. And you'll get that when you do the first 5 properly. From poor standard of care to a sense of purpose. Know that you belong on earth. Know that we are all here for a purpose. And one of the things I found among vegans is that vegans believe that humans don't belong on earth because they have seen how cruel we can be to the other species. And they said, take ourselves out and the planet will be fine. And I said, no, the planet needs us. The planet cannot clean up all the mess we have created. There's so much mess that you have created in on land and in the air and in the water. A lot of it needs our intervention to undo the mess, you know. And finally, from drug consumption or excessive alcohol consumption to contact with nature, because all this ingesting drugs comes from the feeling of disconnection from nature. And so contact with nature is contact with nature as you know, forest bathing or something like that, or contact with your own nature. You know, you have your own nature. So be comfortable in your own skin. That's the 8th. So I see these 8 as the 8 healing habits that we can all do that would heal ourselves. And when you heal yourself, then you'll see that the world is healing around you. You know, you'll start acting in a way that heals the world as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Sabina, and we only have 7 minutes left, so we need Sabina and Pete. So we're going to keep everything short. Thank you. Sorry, Sabina, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rao, for all you shared and the difference you make in this world, all you're creating. That is so inspiring. And, you know, it all starts by showing up differently. That's really what makes all the difference, you know, by instead of trying to tell people what they shouldn't be doing or what they should be doing, instead being the example. And you are walking this path beautifully. So thank you for all you do. And what really struck me, you know, this one sentence you said, we just take, instead we should rather, it's more beneficial or supportive to give more. And I see we live in, I mean, this is really mind-boggling to me when I usually shop at farmers markets, but sometimes I have to go to a supermarket and I look what people buy. And it's mind-boggling to see what's in their cart. It's all packaged food and like mountains. So we live in this over-consuming and just taking, and not just taking, and also throwing then the garbage just somewhere, you know, all the plastic that goes in the ocean. And this is really disturbing to me. See, this over-consuming and just take, and not even thinking of how can you ever give it back, you know? And people don't even think where the garbage goes. There's just no, you know, most of the people don't think ahead and looking deeper into you know, where the issue really comes from. So I love, you know, what all you do, and I will certainly look into some of the films you produce. And thank you for being the inspiration here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your kind words, Sabina. You know, we have to also emphasize the positive around us, because whatever you highlight amplifies in the universe. You know, so when you see the good in people, you amplify that. Yeah, they're all being deceived into consuming more and more and more, because that's the system. You know, that's a system. Systems are what make human beings so powerful, because system is a set of processes that allow you to just, you know, follow those rules and you'll be fine, right? So that's what they teach you. Follow these rules and you'll be fine. And the system that we have created is all about extracting from the planet. It's an extractive system. And it's good for heating the planet, which we have done. And now we have to create a system for restoring the planet. And I bet you that when you create a system for restoring the planet, people will also come along and do exactly that. And they'll become compassionate automatically, because the system is tapping into that aspect of humanity. So I have complete faith in humanity. I really think that we're an amazing species, that we can turn this around.
Wonderful. Thank you. We go to our professional cyclist. Oh, he moves a lot. Go ahead, please, Irv.
Yeah, just thank you so much for sharing all that you have. It's so powerful and enriching. And I love that you have faith. That's the biggest thing, isn't it? To have faith, knowing that change is possible. And with that, so much you mentioned, it just resonates. There's so much I want to say all at once. It gets me excited. Is ahimsa, being kindness and embodying kindness. And you've touched on this. I remember these words being repeated over and over to myself: be the change that you want to see in the world. And I believe that come from Gandhi. He may have said that. And with that, we all recognize suffering within ourselves, having a hard time in life, and surely we want to extend that to everyone else. So we treat ourselves with kindness, we treat others with kindness, and yeah, these are the approaches to do that. And I try and embody that in my life as much as I can, being harmony with nature, feasting on lots of fruit, setting an example, showing others, you know, what's possible, what's doable, doing the best that we can do, and touching on the 8 principles of health that you went through, and breath being so important, being connected with our breath, being in tune, because many of us are unaware of it, being having an effect on our nervous system, like shallow breathing. When we're tense and anxious and stressed, we're very much crunched up. But if we have a nice focused conscious breathing, we really transform our state into something more at peace, more at ease. And the beautiful thing about that is free, and we can take it with us wherever we go. So yes, so thank you so much for sharing it and highlighting all the beautiful things you have done. Thank you.
Wonderful, everyone. This has been a very illuminating hour. Is there any last thing you'd like to leave us with, Dr. Rao?
No, keep at it. Thank you so much for all that you do, and have faith that we are part of this larger process that's transforming the planet.
Wonderful. And we look forward to seeing you again, having you with us again. And if you're ever in London and Pete and Hannah are doing one of their festivals, do stop by, and you get to do their homemade sauna and their ice bath as right afterwards as well. And you get to eat some of their really, we don't have the photographs to show you right now, but they've got some incredible pizza that they made this week. I know that Herb also was able to get some. And I also know that one of the things that they like to do is to also do a lot of festivals. So if you're ever in London, do contact them. So maybe take Sabina with you, because she wants very much to be there and to have that food. So thanks, everyone, for today. We will continue next week with 4 more of the elements. We've done air today, and we will continue with this to show you that we have to start eating the elements and forget about this silly notion of calories. So to everyone who's listening here today, to everyone who's watching, please share this, because there's so many people who are ill, especially mental illness, and have no idea about these elements. And I think this is one of the things that the ancient traditions have given us, the elements, the 5 elements. So we need to start incorporating them in our lives. And when we do so, our lives will definitely prosper and thrive. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Rao. And we're so glad to have had you with us today.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.